Yo, what's going on, gamers? PPMD here, wishing you a happy holiday season and a wonderful new year 2022 coming in. I think a lot of us are ready for it. But before we go there, and I know that there's so much going on at this time right now, but I wanted to take a moment to talk about some of the good things that have happened in 2021. I think, with so much discourse, especially if you're on Twitter a lot of the time, everything looks really bleak and everything. So I wanted to use this time while people are still a little more festive and talk about some of the good things that happened in the past year and leave something up for you guys to discuss at the end. But anyway, this is not going to be ordered. This is just going to be what I want to kind of talk about and give a little bit of extra insight on each of those. Thought it'd be a fun little end of year discussion. Let me know what you guys think. But anyway, the first one I do think is the most important thing that's happened this year. The rest of them aren't ordered in this way, but number one is definitely offline events returning. I mean, this is huge for us for so many reasons. It helps give us a chance to get more rankings back, and we get to see people test the skills of playing in person, and there's no more worry about whether your setup's good or not if you're playing online, for example. So that's really nice, and I think that makes it easier to compare, and be happy with results, and to see the players in person again. I think is great for the fans. Seeing in person Melee, I mean, there's really nothing like it just as a fan experience. So I mean, it's just awesome to see that back. And I know there are questions about that going into the new year, but at least something that did happen this year for a decent portion of it is we had that back, and I think that's wonderful. And part of the result of having more offline events is number two, seeing more of the world catching up to NA. I mean, since Brawl, it was pretty much NA or why even play the game, pretty much. And in the golden age, this wasn't the case. There were good players from so many places in the world, basically all over. And then that really contracted with Brawl coming out. Now you're seeing so much of an expansion again. Scenes are finally growing again, thanks to Slippy and every other innovation that we have. And I think this is really starting to change so much. I mean, Triphasia and Pipsqueak being some of the newest faces of that from the European area, but of course you had Sora from Australia going to Summit and World Tour, and people really loving his personality. He's getting much more of a stream presence now. So yeah, I think there's a lot more that I think we can see more of the world offering in terms of skill and content and everything. And so that's just a win for everyone, right? So I love that. I love that for us. I can't see any issue there. My number three is going to be a resurgence of Peach and Sheik, and then even another Pikachu making waves. So basically getting more character diversity. I think something people complain about in Melee a lot is, there's just the same characters that do well, and there's not many of them. And then you've got to, even within that pool, you've got to play like a couple of them if you want to really do well. And I think we're seeing that even as so much is being optimized in the game, there's still so much being discovered for a lot of characters. Pikachu being a mid-tier, maybe the upper part of a mid-tier, but mid-tier nonetheless, a lot's being discovered with him. Tyler Swift doing a lot of things that Axe isn't doing, just playing completely differently, and it's really cool to watch. But yeah, I mean, we're looking at the post-Armada Peach boom now, where people aren't looking at Armada videos as much to improve, and they're finding their own way. They're finding their own techniques. They're sharing with each other. It's much more collaborative than Armada doing most everything on his own. And I think this might even lead to something stronger there. I mean, we'd even see more characters just kind of collaborating in general. So no surprise that Peach is doing it. Probably Sheik is doing that as well, but I'm not as informed on that situation. But there were so many Sheiks in Smash World Tour that were in the Last Chance qualifier, and especially going into that final bracket there. So many Sheiks, some from different parts of the world, some just have been known about in America for a while but haven't quite hit those next steps yet. But they're all kind of making a name for themselves, and I think, I'm sure more of them are going to come through than, Face Roll, who's been doing well for a while, and things like that. So we are going to see more of them. The Peaches have already kind of broken through, being Polish, Lod, and Triff, among others, but those seem to be like the hot three right now. And so again, really interesting time for character diversity in Melee, and I really love that for us. And then number four, This is something that, again, we are kind of seeing more as we saw much more of Summit and World Tour and offline events. So, again, so much stemming from that, but more people catching up to the higher level. And this is something that people have been talking about for years, honestly, that, oh, the skill gaps are closing or there are more skill tiers or whatever. And I was never fully convinced of that, but watching, especially Summit 12 for me, really kind of showed me how much more things seem like they're getting condensed and how much more people are adapting and things like that. And I think there are a variety of reasons for this. Things like Uncle Punch are going to be part of it. Some of the collaboration I talked about earlier is probably going to be part of it. But regardless of the factors, the result is clear. Things are condensing a lot more. And maybe that ends up changing. Maybe my opinion on that shifts again over time. Maybe it does end up looking more like people in the top five, six, seven ish do still look a little different from other players. And maybe that ends up being where I shift back. I'm not sure. But right now, it seems like things are coming together a lot more. Players in a lot of different, maybe up to the top 20, top 30, top 40. I mean, there's a lot of condensing going on there, which is really interesting. And I think as spectators, I think this is something people really like, being more uncertain of the outcome of a match and having it be more challenging to figure out where everyone is ranked and who could come up next and all that stuff. And so I think this could be a pretty exciting time for spectators too. A good time to watch Melee. So this is something that I think was kind of common more in the Golden Age as well. More people coming up and challenging players more. So a good sign of a healthy game there as well. So really happy to see that. And then number 5, certainly if you've been involved with Melee at all for the past month or two, then you know that something about controllers had to make its way onto the list, even if it is a positive list. And so instead of talking about all the fighting that's going on, I want to talk about how there is something positive about us wanting to regulate controllers, make a rule set for them, say what is allowed, what isn't allowed, what are our guiding philosophies, what are the principles we want to stand by with our controllers to ensure legitimate results, fair play, and all the rest of that. And everyone's got a different take on that, how that should be achieved, and there are people working on that right now. But regardless, I do think that finally we are moving forward to handle this, and it may even lead to working on rule sets again as well, which is certainly my hope. But regardless, we have started on that. It's been going on for quite a while in this year now, and so hopefully we have things resolved maybe sometime next year. That'd be really nice. And so just want to kind of say that even though I don't think anyone really wants to deal with it and no one wants to fight about it, I think we are at the point where we are going to, and hopefully that leads to something good for us. And so that's my hope, and I think that is overall a good thing that we're willing to have the conversation when a lot of conversations like this can be hard to have. So good stuff, community. Number 6. This is one I don't think I've seen anyone talking about, but I really love this one. I've seen so many more players talking about having a positive mentality and having fun while playing. Just the people I know of that have talked about this are Cody, Sora, Polish, Kadoran, Plup, who was on Radio Melee, said his mentality was getting better. Kadoran's talked about having fun a lot. Polish was on Radio Melee talking about it. I know Sora's talked about it on Radio Melee, but I think he's also just kind of talked about it generally. IBDW, for those who don't know, I'm referring to him as Cody. When he won, somebody said my mentality was so different and I just needed to have fun, needed to actually just let things roll off my back, take a deep breath. And, it radically changed his play. It let him do more of what he wanted to do. And so I think this is a great message for people. And I also think it's you kind of don't have much of a choice. There's so much more pressure on players now with so much more people watching and expectations and everything. I think this is a natural evolution, a natural step that we as competitors are taking to handle these stresses, and I think this is really good for us. So I'm very happy about that, and it's awesome, and I hope this can be a great example for more players, and this helps our community as a whole. So absolutely love that. This is a drastic change from how things were even, I don't know, maybe even 3 years ago. So really love to see that, and every high-level player that's contributed to that. And I hope to see more of it because, if you guys have been on Unranked, you probably know that the mentality could still use a little improvement in the community as a whole. So number 7, there's a lot more coaching, explosion of coaching. I think it started at the beginning of this year, but it was, I think more and more people have been getting into it as the year went on. I started, I think, over the summer, something like that. And yeah, I think this is also a natural evolution for Melee. I mean, chess has coaching, other esports have coaching. Why not Melee? This is something that brings financial stability for players. I know in chess, if it's really hard to make it as a player, you might survive financially better as a coach, and maybe you end up enjoying it more. I know there's some coaches that probably feel that way in Melee. I haven't talked to anyone like that, but I could see that being the case. Competing can be really stressful. But I also think they're just having different ways to make your mark on the scene is great. But for players, I think this is really good too. And maybe this is something that even contributes to more people improving, right? Maybe you're in an isolated region, hard to get better. So you get some coaching and you figure out more things you can work on. You get a little better at analysis. You improve your framework of understanding of the game. Whatever it is, I think this is something that is really valuable to help a lot of players that are hungry and want to use all their resources to improve. And I also think this is something that we'll see change the landscape of the community eventually. Many people can remember that Hungrybox had his coaching from Captain Crunch, his good friend, and it was something that in part of many other things, led HBox to be Clutchbox and very hard to beat and so strong. And so I think, and that might be an extreme example, but there are some other people that have really enjoyed their coaches. I mean, I've even talked about how Cactuar was incredibly helpful for completely reformulating the way I thought about the game. And so I think coaches can do a world of good for people. It depends on your situation and how much you want it or whatever, but I do think there is that potential there. And so I think maybe we might see players that maybe have come along with a particular coach in a year, 2 years or something like that. And then that, how does that change the game? What are the coaching impacts on the meta? Are there guidelines that coaches will need to follow eventually? Maybe, but for now, I think just starting this along and the community overall being receptive to it is a good sign. So happy to see that, and shout outs to all the coaches out there. Number 8, moving right through the list here. I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about Smash World Tour, as I have talked about it. I referenced it a little bit already. I think laying the found work for running circuits and giving more representation to other regions, I think Smash World Tour absolutely needs to be on the list for that. So yes, there are talks about other circuits coming, but World Tour did it first, or at least on this larger scale, and so that is something that I think you absolutely need to be happy about. There were just so many regions represented at the World Tour, and there were so many people there, and you got to see so much interesting Melee, and the qualifiers were kind of neat. And sure, I mean, maybe there were issues, and I think many people have focused on them, but overall, a lot of cool stuff regarding Melee and bringing other people out was done, and I love that happened. And so we might look back and say, well, yes, there were the issues, but this was the first, or at least this was a first along a progression of making more circuits in Melee, which I think could be one of the big ways that really changes, maybe even revolutionizes Melee as an esport. So really want to point that out, highlight that, and be thankful for getting to see that in this year, when this was something that was supposed to happen last year, didn't quite make the cut. And so number 9, this is going to be the last one I'm going to talk about. Number 10 is going to be a little bit different. But number 9, I wanted to go a little more biased, but I think you guys might be able to see where I'm going with this. Golden Guardians investing more heavily into Melee. So they had Zane, then they decided to pick up me, Toph, and Nun. And I think this can be a really good thing for Melee, maybe even for fighting games or esports. This is because Golden Guardians is focusing so much on content, on picking up more players, on trying to build our brands, which helps their brand, which, then they help each other, right? Like, it's just a win for everyone. And I think a lot of people have really enjoyed the content. For what it's worth, Ludwig, who, knows a lot about marketing, has said that he's also liked what Golden Guardians has been doing. And, I know a lot of, for whatever that's worth, right? But so I am glad with what they're doing, and I'm glad to be part of the org, and I'm glad to have had myself helped out by them after leaving EG, the parting ways we did. And so I think this could do a lot more good than just for me or just for the team that I'm with, right? This could be something where if Golden Guardians ends up getting pretty big or becoming, easily the biggest esport in Melee or maybe even fighting games, does that make other organizations want to do more content like us, content with us? Does it make more organizations want to get into Melee? Right? I mean, or if we get out and we become more mainstream, do we bring more people into Melee, right? There are all kinds of possibilities down the road from this that I think are great, but even what's kind of been done now I think has been cool. I look at the comments on the YouTube videos for the Golden Guardians channel, and people will say, I don't really follow Melee anymore, but I still really like checking out this stuff. It still makes it kind of interesting and cool to watch, and I think that is something that they're thinking about when working on the videos. So I love that, and it's been a fun time. So maybe kind of biased, but I do think there's potential there, and I think we've already done some good stuff as well. And so that's going to be my list of 9. There are other things that I kind of thought about for number 10, but I want you guys to choose what number 10 is. And I think there's a lot of choices, but I kind of want to leave it up to you because, this was a year of everyone, not just a year of me, but a year of the community. And I think there's a lot of cool stuff to talk about, whether that's Nun's neighbors or everyone fighting on Twitter over someone getting their son Melee and everyone being upset about that somehow, or Fizzy and Samox winning awards at the Esports Awards, if you think that legitimizes Melee, whatever you want to talk about. I just think that hearing a little bit from you guys, what do you guys feel was really valuable this year? I'd love to hear about it. And maybe if you have any thoughts on the rest of the list, if you want to talk about more year-end review stuff, you guys can let me know. Maybe I can get something else done in time if I really hurry. But thank you guys for watching. Here's to another great year of Melee, and it's been fun. See you next year.